Welcome to online module number 2, crafting the Precis. For this, you will need to take notes in your journal, bring those notes to class tomorrow. There is not an online quiz for this module, but the Precis that you write in class tomorrow is going to be taken for a grade. At the end of this video, you will see the rubric for the Precis, and that'll tell you how it will be graded. You will write the Precis independently in class tomorrow. You will not get assistance on that. So what is a Precis? Precis is a rhetorical Precis is the 4-part paragraph that records all the important information in a spoken or written work. There are a couple of really important things that are in there: the speaker's name, the publication information. We refer to that as the tag, like the title, author, genre, and the year that that publication came out in parentheses. The message, how the speaker developed the message, the stated purpose, like what the purpose is, and the target audience, or the relationship between the speaker and the audience. To write a Precis, the very first part should be about 1 sentence long, and you start it with the title, author, genre, your publication. You use an author action verb to introduce the author's central message. If you notice the words I have here highlighted in blue, author and message, these are things that you can find on the rhetorical triad. So once you've completed your rhetorical triad, you're just taking the information from there and you're putting this in the paragraph form. So that's the first part of a Precis. And we'll see an example in just a minute. This is just the steps for how to do it. In the second part of the Precis, you explain how the author develops and supports his or her message. So you'll look at those 2 or 3 particular sections of the text that you noted earlier. For example, in class, we selected 2 or 3 sections, a place from the beginning, the middle, and the end of the text, where you were going to analyze what the author was doing on the one side, on the left-hand side, as your fast reading annotations, and then on the right-hand side, you have your close reading annotations, and that is a description of how the author, the writer, did the what. So you use that information for the second part of the Precis. The third part of the Precis is the author's purpose, followed by in order to. So the purpose is found in the center of the rhetorical triad. You want your specific purpose, not the general purpose that you came up with before you had read the text thoroughly, but after you have a better understanding of the text, that purpose. And then the Precis ends with a description of the target audience. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at what that looks like with all 4 of those parts together. What we have here is kind of like a equation where you need to fill in some parts. And the parts that are in brackets and parentheses here are the things that you're going to fill in. So for the very first sentence of the Precis, you might start with in the, and then the name of the publication, article, text, whatever it is. And then you include the title of the text. The publication itself usually gets italics or underlining because it's a major work. And then the article, the name of the article, should be in quotation marks. So if you're reading a text that comes from the New York Times, you would say in the New York Times article, and then you'd put in quotation marks the title of that article. And in parentheses, the year that that article was published. Then you put the author's name, usually their full name, first and last name. After you refer to them this first time, you can just use their last name. But the first time you mention them in your Precis, you use their first and last name. And if they have a title like doctor, then you would include that as well. The author action verb goes right after that. And then what the author claimed, listed, illustrated, revealed, reflected, rationalized, whatever they did, and you fill in the message, which you already have because it was in your rhetorical triad. That is the first sentence, sentence 1. Sentence 2 is where you talk about what the writer did and how they did it. So you would say in the first section, or in the beginning of the article, or in the first paragraph if the text is shorter, the speaker, you would use their name, like Padilla in our case. And then you say what Padilla did and how she did it. Remember the example that we talked about in class today, where Padilla illustrated how people in the Latino community often try to bring each other down. So that's the what. And then how she did that was by using an allegory or an analogy of crabs in a bucket. So that would be what you would say there. In the first section, Padilla, whatever she does, if that happened in that section, then you have semicolon. Then in the second section, then what she did, the what, and then the how. And then finally, then what, and how. That's the second sentence. That part might be 2 sentences long because it could be pretty long if you try to put it all together. But it should be no longer than 2 or 3 sentences. The third part is the purpose. Her purpose is to influence what thought, like to change people's mind or get them to think about what in order to get them to do what action. So you have to include the thought and the action. Then the last part, Padilla primarily targets who? Like who is the target audience? Describe them thoroughly. There's usually more than one audience. There's the like obvious or the apparent audience, and then there are other people who would be interested or who would be influenced by this text. So you need to think about those people as well. Let's take a look at an example. This part where it says you try it here, this formula, you need to write that down. Okay, so you should pause the video at this point. If you have not already written down this information, pause the video now and write down this formula kind of in a fill-in-the-blank sense, because you can use it tomorrow when you're working on your Precis. Here's an example of a Precis based on the text that I read when I did the online module number 1, showing you how to do the annotations in the first part of your rhetorical triad. So I have all 4 parts of the Precis here highlighted in different colors. The first section of the Precis is in blue, then the second in green, the next in red, and then in purple. In the New York Times article, Giving Up on 4-Year-Olds, notice New York Times is italicized, and Giving Up on 4-Year-Olds, the title is in quotation marks, and then I use, in parentheses, I put the year that it was published. The editorial board claims that public school disciplinary practices discriminate against minorities and the disabled and urge readers to take action. That was the message. Then, in the green part here, you see where I describe each thing that the author did and how they did it. In the first section, the editors provide data to show that these children are treated more harshly than other groups. Then, in the second section, the editors cite measures the government has already taken, you should say taken instead of taking, to combat the problem, but claim much more needs to be done. Because Giving Up on 4-Year-Olds was a shorter text, it was a short article, I just used 2 sections. Now, when you have a longer text that might be 3 or 4 pages long or more, like the one we've just gone through, then you want to select sections or to talk about, to analyze from 3 different points in the text. The next section of the Precis here in this example is the purpose. Their purpose, the editorial board, because we don't know their names. Their purpose is to bring attention to this pressing problem in order to move their readers to join in the movement to reevaluate school disciplinary policies. So we have what they wanted people to think. They wanted to bring attention to the problem in order to get the readers to join the movement. So there's a thought and an action. Then the last sentence is about the target audience. The editors primarily target those readers who are both invested in American public schools and have the resources to influence public policy. So there are two different audiences here. First of all, we know that they're the readers, but particular types of readers would be interested in this text. So that's our full sample Precis. Okay, so we're going to end that, and I'm going to show you what the rubric is like for the Precis that you're going to write tomorrow, which will be 4 to 5 sentences long. So end this and open the rubric. Okay, so you should see here the IRC Precis rubric. Total points possible is 100 points. You can earn 20 points in each of these categories here for mechanics, like how grammatically correct your sentences are and that you use punctuation properly. That first sentence, the second section, the third, and the fourth. So each section is 20 points itself. And that's the grade that you'll get. So you should pause this video at this point and take a look at the rubric carefully, how you can earn sophisticated score in each one of the categories. All right, that's the end of our Precis video for today. Make sure that you have thorough notes that you bring to class tomorrow so that you're ready to write the Precis. If you have questions about how to write a Precis, or you have any questions about the video, you can send me an email or a text before 9 p.m. Now, if you message me at 8:59, don't be surprised if you don't get a response. So earlier, the better.